Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. My four other podcasts, the speaking podcast to help you communicate, the meditation podcast to help you chill, learn Polish if you feel like learning Polish, and the awakening to know what's going on in the world to wake you up a bit. And all can be found on roycon.com. Today, my guest, a fellow podcaster. Please welcome Anthony Fatseas.
Hey, Roy, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And we were talking before how brave you are just doing all these podcasts. So, and then adding crypto as well, which I guess is it's going to be massive in the future. But yeah, so you're preparing yourself.
Exactly. And yeah, I know you're a fellow podcaster with, I believe, 70 shows, but you might let the listeners know who's Anthony.
Yeah, definitely. So I am the host and founder of the WTFinance Podcast. And we don't focus on crypto. We focus on sort of all things investing, finance, trading, macroeconomics, anything. And I guess where that comes from, I'm a student at the moment and I'm studying finance, looking to get into the industry. And for me, it was just like, how can I talk to these, amazing experts and find out more? Sometimes you're sort of on the other side of a podcast, you're listening and you're like, I'd ask that question a little bit different, or I'd say that thing, or I'd want to ask that. So that's really where it started. And from there, as you said, I've released 70 episodes over about a year and a half. And I've just really enjoyed it. And I feel that it's really added to sort of my knowledge. And I think, other people have enjoyed it as well. And it's just having access to those experts. And it's so easy these days, as, we've just connected online and, you just organize a Zoom call and you can talk to anyone all around the world. So that's what I love about it, really.
Yeah, and I actually love the name because you don't have it written down as what there. You've WTF Finance,
Yeah, WT Finance,
which is creative. Yeah. At the end of the day, we have to be creative in our marketing, and it's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, so small things, isn't it?
Definitely. So I suppose let's talk about how you got into the crypto world.
Yeah, definitely. So I got into crypto. So I'm from Australia, but I moved to the UK, and I was just at college early on, and a friend introduced me to crypto. And probably like a lot of people, you hear about it for years, and you hear about this, crazy Bitcoin thing that's gone up by a ridiculous amount of money. And I think I heard about it first in 2012, just from friends at school, and they were talking about it. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And, you Google it and you're like, wow, that's way too complicated for me. I wasn't really a tech guy. So you just sort of just leave it. And then I'd heard, kept hearing about it, 2016. And then in 2018, when I went to college in the UK, my friend, he was really into it, and he'd bought quite a lot of Bitcoin and XRP and a lot of the other coins at the time. And he actually showed me how to do it, because at the time you had to sort of go through Coinbase, and that they only had access to about 3 or 4 tokens. Then from there, you had to transfer your money to Binance, and they had a lot more access to all these other coins. So I remember he showed me how to do it, and he's like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. You should put some money into it. It's going to the moon. He was talking about XRP at the time. And I think it was just when Bitcoin was at $6,000. So it already had the $20,000 sort of peak. It was coming down, and everyone's like, yeah, $6,000 is a really good resistance. It's not going to go lower. It's held for the last few months. It's great. So I think I put a few £100 in at the time, which was a lot for me. And the next day it halved in value. So it dropped down to 3,000. That was sort of the real low. So I guess it was probably lucky the timing I got in. But yeah, it was a real lesson that, wow, this thing is real volatile. It's not always going to go up. Sometimes it can go down. It can go down a lot. So I guess that's really where I got into crypto. And then from there, it was just trying to learn. I was addicted. I had the bug. I had to learn as much as I can about investing, about trading. And I guess that sort of led me to where I am today.
I suppose because it is confusing at the start. I remember, I was told it was around 14 about Bitcoin, and I just looked at it, and I think you need to have somebody sit down with you. I mean, I just found out that I was, interested in it, but you need somebody to go, okay, this is what you do. You do this, get this wallet, get this exchange, go on here, and then it's easy. It's like driving. You need somebody to teach you how to drive. And I believe it's the same thing here. It's very hard for somebody to just go online and learn how to do it without making the mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially when it's money involved, like, you got these crazy long addresses that you've never seen before in your life, unless you may be a coder. And then you got to send it to another exchange, which is like, why am I doing this? Is this legitimate? What's happening? And I guess, probably today it's gotten easier because there's, Coinbase it's got a lot more range. You can almost probably survive off Coinbase, and they've got Coinbase Pro as well. Or there's all these other applications coming through, in the US, there's Robinhood and other applications where you don't really have to use any of those back-end blockchain, things, you can actually just use it on the front end of these systems. So I guess for anyone who wants to get involved in crypto, it's quite easy, just maybe for the appreciation value of it. But I guess, if you want to develop, or if you want to get more into the nitty gritty of it, then as you said, someone's almost got to show you.
Yeah, exactly. And wallets then, like the cold wallet, what one do you actually recommend?
So I don't actually have a cold wallet. So I'm at the moment, which is probably not a good idea, but I have been thinking, like, philosophically, you've seen what's happened, I guess, and this might be on a bit of a tangent, but you've seen what's happened. Obviously the Russia-Ukraine crisis has been horrible, but how they've just frozen a lot of the Russian, exchange, sort of the Russian money that it's around the world. We saw it in Canada as well with the truckers' riots, where they actually were freezing people's bank accounts. So for me, it's almost like, hang on, while it's been done for good purposes at the moment, and it should have been done, how could this affect each person in the future? Like, could there be a point where, I guess this might be a bit crazy, but where if you disagree with, something that happened to the government, or you disagree with some purpose, they can actually block your bank account and they can basically control everything that you do. So that's where I've been thinking about, okay, a cold wallet as a part of my portfolio would be actually really vital, just in case, if that were to happen for whatever reason, it's almost mitigating that risk. But I know obviously Ledger's quite popular and all those ones. But yeah, at the moment I just use a warm wallet. I'm taking the risk.
Yeah. No, because is it Mount Gov was the one years ago.
Gox,
I
yeah.
was at Gox 2009. So basically, yeah, somebody had hacked into that. So that's just the risk, by not using, the cold wallet. And I like, kind of, if you're familiar with Agenda 2030 and everything, I this is all orchestrated, and I think they're going to, they want you to own nothing and be happy. And I'm convinced they're going to take all your money. They've already done it in Cyprus, and because you mentioned,
Yeah.
Greek if in the family. So like you probably are aware of that, but most people wouldn't. But they basically just took money out of their accounts, and that was part of the EU, which is kind of okay.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So, I guess most people in the Western world have probably heard of bailout, where, the government's actually giving, people or companies money. They've never heard of what happened in Cyprus, which is the bail-in, where they actually took money out of people's bank accounts. And I guess maybe the reason they could get away with that is a lot of the money that was invested in Cyprus was, potentially dodgy from Russia or Russian oligarchs and other things as well. They might not have had the sort of legal system there. So I guess the fact that they took the money because they knew that people wouldn't legally challenge them, or the majority of people wouldn't legally challenge them because it was maybe from dodgy places as well. But as you said there, they literally have the control, if they wanted to take people's money. So
they have brought in legislation in a few countries. It was similar. Like, there's some weird stuff going on at the moment, and normally it's hidden. It's under the carpet. They'll have some propaganda going on that everybody's looking this way while they're, creating this on the opposite side. And so it's probably in most countries where they can do that. So just, kind of buyer beware. Like, they tell you have like the insurance of, I think it's something like 100,000 in your account. So if you've got 10 million and the bank goes belly up or whatever, it's like, yeah, you're only going to get 100,000. And to be honest, I'd say good luck with getting that, because at the end of the day, who are you going to go after? Like, I think it's just kind of to give people confidence that they leave their money in there. But I personally believe you'll never actually see a penny of it if something like that ever does happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's, we don't want to be conspiracy theorists here. We're not saying it's going to happen, but it's just being aware of, like, what are the risks that's going to happen in the future, I think. And that's really important. As we've seen it happen, and it's like, okay, this is a risk. Even if I just put maybe 10% of my crypto portfolio or 10% of my normal portfolio into a, cold wallet, you still have it. It's not as if you lose anything from doing that, but you're just protecting yourself potentially from the risk. And, we've seen recently, if you were a normal citizen in Russia, you've been destroyed from the actions of your government in invading Ukraine. So if you had that, cold wallet, then that's great for you, because that means that you can actually take some of your net worth and some of your, your hard-earned cash if you wanted to move out of Russia. And we saw that, I guess, during the, this is going back in history, but during the Russian Civil War in like the 1900s, like a lot of the wealthy people, they had diamonds or they had jewelry, and that's really the only value that they could actually take out. They had to almost hide it when they were fleeing the country. So, it's scary things to think about, but we've just seen what's happened in Russia, where the government literally stops you from transferring any money, any international, any foreign currency. So it's something I'd say, just be aware of, I think.
And
sorry, we've gone completely off,
yeah, no,
off
but
topic away from crypto.
I think it's all relevant, because even if you're traveling, like they tell you, I think it's all over the world, but within the EU, definitely, it's like something like 10,000 euro is the max that you can be carrying. I mean, like all the governments and all the banks, they're all doing the corruption for billions, but we're the bad guys. So, but basically, you could actually bring your little wallet with you, and you could have literally 10 million, and that's, they've no way of knowing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's as you said, it's just so easy to do. It's like, I've heard people say, if you had to leave your house in 5 minutes for whatever reason and never return, having a USB stick it'd be the easiest way to actually carry your value.
Exactly. So I know you're into NFTs now as well, and to be honest, it's something based on having a few guests on that I'm actually going down that road as well, because I find it a very interesting subject, and it's kind of, it's weird. I'm looking at some, shaking my head on, trying to understand the value of it, and others going, okay, this makes sense. So I suppose, what's your NFT journey?
Yeah, so I actually just got involved in it last year, probably similar to others. You hear about the hype and you're like, I was already involved in crypto, and I'm like, what is this? How can I learn more about it? How can I research it? And yeah, I actually went straight into the Solana chain. So if anyone who doesn't know, there's NFTs are based, they're based on the different chains. So, and they're based on the ones with smart contracts. So obviously there's Ethereum, which is the largest market cap NFT sort of marketplace, which is normally OpenSea. So that's the most popular. And that's where, probably the ones you've heard of, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, the CryptoPunks, all that stuff. But one of the issues that I find with Ethereum is it has quite high, they call them gas fees. So it's quite high transactions. So especially if you don't have that much money that you want to invest, because, they're highly speculative, you might not want to put thousands of dollars in. If you were to make a transaction, it can sometimes be 50 to 100 US dollars just for one transaction, which is, for me, it was a bit ridiculous. Yes, so yeah, which is for a lot of people, it's a high barrier to entry. So I went to the Solana blockchain, which is, it has a lot lower transaction fees, and it was quite new when I sort of entered in the NFT space. I think they'd only been around for about a month. So yeah, that was something that, it was just learning about it, getting into the ecosystems, finding out, and you've probably experienced this. There's a lot of pump and dumps. There's a lot of rug pulls where, say, these founders, they have a mint, which is where people can sort of buy the NFTs. And then from there, they might have promised all these, aspirations or a roadmap that they're going to do in the future, but they just don't do that. And they just sort of leave. They've taken the money, they've gotten, sometimes millions of dollars, and then they're left. So for me, it was really trying to understand, okay, what are these, what are the good projects? What are the bad projects where they might just leave? And learning from that. And I've definitely learned the hard way with some of the things. I'm sure most people have with some of the rug pulls, but that was really what happened for me. And then now I've been really looking at the technological side of things, and there's something called the Gartner hype cycle, which some people might have heard of. And it's like Gartner's a company that's sort of a consulting company, and they're looking at the hype of different technologies. And at the moment, they think that NFTs is at the very peak of the hype cycle, and it's just going to crash down. And they call it sort of the trough of disillusionment afterwards, where similar to maybe Bitcoin and crypto, sort of when I started, where, the price crashed, all the casuals were just like, nah, we've lost all this money. We're not going to look at it. We're going to sell out. But the people who are really interested in it, and the people who are actually really developing sort of, the ecosystem, were still there, and they're developing. And they were the people who, now that we've seen, further increase in value of crypto, they've benefited. And I think we might be sort of getting to that stage now. Obviously, it's not smart to predict these things, but I think we might get into the point where maybe there's we might see a drop in value for majority, maybe not all the NFTs, but there's going to be lots of work happening in the background, lots of people developing things, and that's really where a lot of the value is going to come from.
I mean, I'm currently working on creating digital art with some fantastic artists, and I see value in that, because I can have a frame on the wall with a beautiful piece of art that's actually moving, and you can change it every month if you want, because sometimes people, they have art for a certain bit of time, and I can see true value in that. Whereas, I don't know, ape or froggo or something like that, that's kind of like speculation, or for me anyway. I but after kind of researching it more and looking at it, it's like Nike shoes or Trump different cards. There's some people are into it, so why knock it? If it's something that can sell. And regarding what you mentioned, that the boys think it's at the top, I think it's at the bottom. It's just because there's so many people that don't even know anything about it, and it's a brilliant way for an artist, to make proper money, because most of the time they're being shafted. There's so many different people that are actually, not looking out for them, and especially musicians. Like you've got Spotify and all these different places. They're not getting a fair cut of the whip, whereas they can now create something and build their own community. So I think with the NFTs, it's going to be down to marketing. It's really down to marketing. And if somebody's already got the audience, instead of actually where they just normally put it out, they can guide them towards this. And I don't think anybody that's in the NFT world was go, no, I don't like this, I'm getting out. It's like, yeah, as you mentioned, you'll have a few people coming in that are like just getting in for speculation. But if you get in for the true value of something, I think you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as you said, the people who've come in for a quick buck, they're the ones who maybe have experienced the most loss. And then from there, they leave straight away. But as you said, it's, there is the value, especially with artists. And for them, the royalties are massive. And I think, I guess we've seen it. You talk about people with a big audience like Gary V. Again, for Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a prime example. He's made, I'm pretty sure, hundreds of millions of dollars through his, NFTs. And a lot of it hasn't come from actually selling them. It's come from the royalties. So, he can take 6% of every sale that happens of his NFTs after the fact, sort of after he's sold them. And that's really where the value comes. And I'm thinking, for myself as well, it's like, how can you, because there has been a lot of maybe negative vibes around NFTs from the public, because a lot of them think it's, very speculative and it's, a waste of money. There's no value in it at all, even though we might disagree with that. So it's like, how do you incorporate NFTs maybe to your offering without turning away a lot of your audience who might not be interested and they might not see the value of it? And sort of where I see, from my perspective, it's almost like if you give these NFTs away for free, and it might be to your, best supporters, or to, people who they might do something, they might be a part of your membership, it might be some things like that. You give them away for free, so they get value out of it and they're happy. But then in the long term, you're getting the value from them, selling it on and taking profits because you're getting the royalties. That's where I see a lot of the value potentially coming from, where, you're saying, because as I said, there's, I watch a lot of things, to do with gaming, to do with all these other things. And the general person has quite a negative connotation about NFTs. They think sometimes it's a scam. So it's like, how do you, provide the offering, which is, as we know, is a great technology, which can provide great value for people without getting that negative connotation as well. So that's maybe where I see, you provide it for free. And then from there, you're benefiting from the royalties, because, if it's 6% of sales, even if it's they're only $1,000 at the time, you're still making $60 per sale. And then from there, you can reinvest that back into your company or back into anything else.
Yeah. And same with, whether it's art or whatever, you can have one of 100 or one of a couple of thousand and even charge $1, but you could end up getting a lot more for that than if just selling it normally. And, there's that. And I think, I thought Gary V is charging 10, maybe it's varying on the different one he's doing, but I heard 10% commission is what he's actually charging on some of the, with the royalties. And I mean, I've looked at some of his stuff. There's one thing, it's like, and I'm like, I don't really get the value in some of the stuff he's doing. Maybe I have to research a bit more, but I was looking at something with a B and I was like, it's like a computer game I played 30 years ago, so I know I'm not really getting it, but, I suppose he's brilliant with marketing. He's got a fantastic audience. People love his style. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I look at it and go, I wouldn't buy that in a million years, because there's a million people that would. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about with the royalties, because there's something that I'm after learning. Like, a lot of the stuff is on OpenSea, but if you change the exchange, then the person doesn't get the royalty. And I think that's something that has to be kind of addressed, because, if somebody's moving to a different platform and you're thinking, oh, I sell X amount of this and I keep doing this for so long, I've got a beautiful passive income, which, it's like multi-level marketing, but a real proper one that's actually, you're being looked after, which for the creator. But I'm not sure how many people will jump based on the different, not having to pay the actual royalty. But there's other exchanges are charging 15% to sell it, whereas OpenSea, I think, is like 2.5%. So they're preventing a lot from jumping based on that, but not sure what your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think from what I know, and I might be wrong, but the royalty is actually in the contract. So it's in the smart contract of the NFT. So I think it's not down to OpenSea paying for it. It's actually down to.
I've actually read that. That's
what. Really?
And I double checked it with somebody else who's actually big in the crypto world. So they're actually saying no, that's the way it's done. Which, I would have thought is exactly the same thing. That the contract is based on this. So as soon as the sale is done, it automatically, it's not baked, because if it came back to the guy that's actually doing it, then you've got fraudulent as well with one person. Why would I bother giving the percentage to the person? So it would be automatic, and that's how it should be done. But no, that's what I read, and then I double checked it, going, that's a bit of a shame. And the other person confirmed to me, like, so it's
well, that's quite concerning. And I think the more that happens, and if people try and get around it, the more legislation that will come in and the more regulation, because someone like Gary Vee, I don't know if he would, but or someone else, maybe they might take it to legally, because I know that there have been a few sort of NFTs that have promised these great things of like almost dividends every single month, but then they've had issues with the SEC in the US where they're saying no, you can't actually promise payments in future months unless you become a security. And then if you become a security, there's all these other regulations as well. So I think that's the risk. If people push it too far where they're trying to avoid these things, and it's going to mean the government and regulators are going to come in harder, and they're going to try and quicker, and they're going to try and maybe even impact some of this innovation that we're seeing, which is quite concerning. And I think regulation is important, but you don't want it to come in too quickly, too hard, and to destroy all the innovation happening in the space.
Yeah, and I see some of them have like extras that you don't know what they are. So you're buying the NFT, and then there's kind of like, have you got any of them, or have you? Because from my understanding, if you resell, then is it the person that bought it has to send on this extra? Because I don't think it's part of the actual blockchain itself. It has to be sent on. I'm not sure. Have you actually experienced any of that?
No, I'm not really too sure about that. I always thought it was automatic, but that might be my
I know, because it was just
technical side coming out.
Just through reading something on it, and that's kind of the way that they were saying. So I was thinking, okay, that's a great marketing thing, because everybody like, I'd like, there's something extra and you get excited. But does it create problems later on when it's resold and somebody doesn't get it because they could be bad mouthing it? And even though it's nothing to do with the artist, it's the future seller, but it still could damage your reputation.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know there's been things where like they actually don't release the art. So I'm not sure if you've seen that, where you buy it, you mint the NFT and the art hasn't actually been released yet. So from there, it's almost like a reveal where it depends. So you don't know what rarity you have. You don't know what art you have. You don't know what it looks like. So, you can either, if there's lots of hype behind the project, you can sell it on and maybe make a small profit, or you can hold it and potentially make a huge profit in the future. But then that's also, I know a friend, it was like a mafia one that they had on, and, even everyone was interested in it, even Gary Vee. And then they screwed up the contract, and it basically went to zero because everyone, they lost trust and faith in the project. And that's what I found. It's all about the trust and the faith, and a lot of marketing as well to the actual value. As you mentioned there, you look at maybe Bored Ape Yacht Club, or I think Suzuki, or there's another one that's come through, Azuku, sorry, and CryptoPunks. Does the art look that very, very good? Probably not. But then there's that people find value in, and they, keep putting the price up.
I've seen one recently where there's ones, I don't know, is it called Trump, but it's Donald Trump, and it looks like kind of Beavis and Butthead graphics, so not very great graphics, and there's just different things. He's got a hat on, Make America Great, then he's got, like Indiana Jones hat with a patch, and it's like all different things. And the prices were, I think, I don't know, was it? I'm sure it was 10,000, and I think this is the second round that they've done. But the prices were like from $500 to $2,750, and loads of them were sold. And I'm like, it's like, but if I think of the artist, because a good programmer, there's less than 15 minutes work in most of the changes that you could see. So even if you say he took an hour, like the amount, he's made millions on this based on that. And I suppose it's all, most of the people buying that would be buying it on speculation, because you could hardly say, oh, I want to have 50 of these kind of, crappy drawings. Like,
Yeah, well, I think it's and it's something that, if you look at what happened in 2018 with the ICO bubble initial coin offerings, they were massive back then, but the majority of them failed. If you look at it, majority of them didn't actually deliver what they promised. They really, some of them were pump and dumps and just did it for the money. Some of them just overpromised, and they were legitimate, but they just couldn't deliver it. And I think we're going to see the same. It's the same for businesses, I guess. If you look at it, they say for only 95% of startups, maybe 5% of them are still around in 5-10 years. And then it sort of lowers down on the ones that are successful and become, the IPO and become these massive tech companies. So I think that's going to be the same for NFTs. It's going to be, the majority of them are going to, they might not fail, but they're not going to appreciate as much as the maybe investors or speculators want, or they're not going to be able to deliver the actual promises behind it. So the roadmap that they've promised, but there are going to be that few where people are going to make a lot of money from them, and they're going to deliver great things. And I guess, there's a few games that we've seen that have done really well. And there's a few other things as well that we've seen that, if you look at CryptoPunks, they were free in 2018. You could literally mint them for free just for the transaction fee. And now they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's hard to know.
So, you could even have different stages. So you release, and it's just getting the community, because everyone wants something for free. But I think there's probably others trying to copy that, because I've heard of people, and you can see beautiful art and everything, and zero bidding on it. And I've seen stupid stuff as well. People putting up a picture or trying to get $200 for it, or something that,
Yeah, well, it's all about as you said, marketing and the following. And if you have a following of people who like your work and like what you do, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be able to sell them this NFT that they, and hopefully it's something that provides them value and that's good, good for your brand and good for their brand as well. And I think that's what we find a lot of especially the ones coming out now, that they've got a big following, either through building it through hype, through offering great things, through building a massive Discord, or it's through their own community that they've built up over multiple years, and now they're trying to provide value to them.
And with the whitelist, then what's typically included in that?
So a lot of the times it's just actually minting early. So for anyone who doesn't know, to get an NFT when it first launches, you have to mint, and that's just basically you're interacting with this smart contract on the Ethereum or on the other blockchains system, and then from there it sometimes takes a little bit of time, and then you actually get you pay for this NFT, which then is put in your wallet. So what a whitelist normally does, because anyone who's actually tried to do a mint, especially if there's lots of hype, it's pandemonia. There's all these errors because there's so many people actually trying to mint this one product. So there might be 10,000 NFTs being released, but there's 100,000 people trying to mint it. So the website crashes, the smart contract, there's so many issues with it. You can't load. It's almost like if you're trying to buy, a ticket for a really popular event, say the Super Bowl, or say, the World Cup final or something, just things break because there's so much demand on it. And then the issue as well with Ethereum is you might pay the gas fee, which, we mentioned it could be $50 to $100, but it doesn't even work. So you're just trying to mint the thing and it doesn't work. So what the whitelist does is actually provides for a certain amount of people early access to be able to mint it. So it might be, 24 hours ahead. It could also provide other, benefits as well. But that's normally what I've found. It's really just being able to mint it at an early stage. And a lot of the time that's for people who, they've actually helped the community early on. So they might have shared it. They might have gotten more people involved in the sort of in the NFT, almost build hype. And yeah, you could say it's almost like a pyramid scheme sometimes where, the more people you get involved, then you get this benefit of actually being in the whitelist, which is, I guess that's good marketing wise, but then it can be sometimes sort of some red flags as well. So I guess if we talk about red flags and some things that I like to look out for when looking at projects, especially if they're just starting, you want to make sure that there's a team and that there's as much transparency about the team as possible. Ideally, they're actually telling you their names or they're telling you like the pseudonyms, because a lot of the time we might see, and it's happened before, where people just get these stock pictures online and then they put them and they say, these are the founders, and they use these random names, but they have, no, they have no interaction with that project. So I think that's the first thing, trying to actually find who the team is, who are their founders, what can you find out about them? Do they have experience of doing this in the past, or are they just some random who's trying to take advantage of the buzz behind it all? I think as well, if, a lot of the projects are through Discord. So that's where, if you want to get into NFTs, I recommend getting Discord and a lot of the channels there. That's sort of how you interact with the team and the projects. Just make sure that, who's talking in the Discord. Is it just people looking to try and, make a quick buck? They're talking about, oh, this is going to go to the moon. This is going to, this is going to go to a ridiculous time. Is that what they're talking about? Or are they actually people interested in the value they're going to provide? So is it a game where they're going to provide this great platform in the future where you can almost, play to earn or something like that? So I think that's something as well, looking at the audience, looking at, what are their needs? What do they want out of this project? Because if they're just going to try and sell it really quickly for a quick buck, once the price goes down, and we've seen it, people will mint a product, they'll mint an NFT, the price goes down after 5 minutes and they panic and they try and sell to recoup as much money as they can. So that's going to be quite detrimental for the actual value of the NFT over the long term, and the community as well. So I think that's another thing as well to watch out for. And yeah, those are the main things. Really, the main focus will be the developers or the team, and what have they done in the past, and how good is that? And they won't give you an exact. It won't mean that it's definitely going to succeed, but it's going to give you a much greater chance of that they will succeed.
With the Discord then, because what I've noticed, I use Discord and I'm in a few different groups, but it's like, no, I everything I do, I use my name because I believe in full transparency. But I don't see anybody with their name. They've all got code names and everything. And can you actually, by going into that, hitting the links and stuff like that, can you figure out who somebody is and kind of realize that, they haven't got 500 different kind of usernames and they're, spamming people or trying to, do some fraudulent activities?
Yeah, so it is quite hard. A lot of the times they might have a Twitter. Twitter's sort of, so if you getting into NFTs to start with, Discord and Twitter are really the two platforms where it's most popular. And that's something, I'd never used Twitter before until I got into NFTs. And then you go there and it's where a lot of the, I guess a lot of the things are promoted. And from there, they try and get you on the Discord platform. So that'll be one important thing, just seeing if they have a Twitter, and then from there, you can actually look if they have this amount of followers, how much interaction do they have? If they have like 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers and no one's liking into the stuff, they've just started posting, okay, it's going to look, fraudulent. But
because you can buy users, just for those that don't know.
Yeah.
With TikTok, with every single social media, you can buy users. So you can have 100,000, and that's how I do it actually, even with guests and stuff like that. I go through it and you can actually see the interaction. Sometimes you see somebody, they have only 300 followers and they'll have way more interaction than somebody with 100,000 or 200,000.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, as you said, we see it with guests, and I'm the same. You see these people that got 100,000 followers, but they might get 5 or 6 or 7 likes, and you're like, yeah, they're dodgy. And I think that's the thing. It's like looking for all these small things, and it does take time. It's nothing that I can't tell you all the things to watch out for because there's so many of them. But I think that's the main thing I'd look at. Go to Twitter, see what they have. Go to their website as well. And another thing is see who's interested in it, see who's involved, because there's quite a few names in the space who, are quite reputable and they've been around for a while. In Solana, there's this guy called Soul Big Brain. And he's quite on NFTs on Twitter, and he's quite well known. He's been involved in quite a few good NFT launches, but not just that, just sort of looking into it and doing the due diligence as well. So I think that'll be the main thing. Find those people who, have a lot of knowledge and they've been involved in the space for at least a year, I'd say, because if you look at NFTs, they've been around for 2 years by now, or longer than that, about 7 years, but really the most popular part of it has been the last 2 years.
Excellent. And you mentioned Solana and the gas fees with Ethereum, with Ethereum 2.0 that's coming out. I'm not sure when. We've been hearing it about a while, but should that then in theory kind of make it a level playing field? Because I see that Ethereum seems to be the bigger one, but at the end of the day, not everyone, it's okay when you're investing big bucks, in the thousands, but most people, even $100 might be a lot of money, if they're a student or whatever, and they don't want to be paying high gas fees. So will 2.0 be the solution?
Hopefully. And I think it's something that's been talked about for a while, as you said, that it was meant to be implemented, I think last year, last September or something. And it just hasn't. And I think that's the issue. these systems are so complex, and they're all going about it different ways. Like Ethereum's going about it sort of similar to normal developers, where you're just like MVPs and you're reiterating, you're trying to improve the system. Whereas something like a Cardano is like, they're going about it the complete opposite, even though, Vitaly and Charles, they started actually on Ethereum at the same time. Whereas Cardano, they're doing it, they're trying to do all this research, they're trying to do all the academic research, and then from there implement it. So they all have their different ways of doing it. And I think the issue with Ethereum is they have promised this for so long, and it's meant to be implemented for so long. And I think once they implement it, it will be great. As you said, it's going to reduce the supply of Ethereum. It's going to reduce, go from a proof of work, which is currently what Bitcoin uses as well, and requires a lot of energy, to a proof of stake, which will then, rather than using energy and rather than using computer power, you're going to use actually staking your Ethereum to then, increase the stability of the system. And I think that will greatly reduce the energy costs. It will greatly reduce, the fees. But when will that happen? Because they're such complex systems, and trying to, as I was saying, it was meant to be released at least 6, 7, 8 months ago, but it hasn't done yet. But it will definitely make it easier for people to access, easier for them to transact, and it will be able to reduce the barriers to entry, which is important because for a lot of people, these things are so speculative and in their opinion. So them putting thousands of dollars in, especially if they've got £10,000 or dollars to invest, they don't want to put 30, 40, 50% of their, net worth into that. They want to maybe put, 1% or even 5% of it at maximum. And I think that's where the value of NFTs will come from. Once the barriers are lower, where people can just put that small amount in, from there, that they're more willing to do that.
And just finally with Twitter, Elon getting kind of, taking over, because unfortunately Twitter, like a lot of the social media channels, it works on negativity. So the guys that are posting horrible stuff are actually, getting put up, and something beautiful is nobody's seen. I know there's a lot of them using it for NFTs. So basically people start following the people that show it. So that's kind of different, because, and it's a positive as far as I'm concerned, rather than a lot of the gunk that's out there and people listening to just terrible things. But it would seem to me like a good thing, because he's in the crypto world.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard to know what will happen, because if anyone who's been following it, he's made an offer, and now the board of Twitter, who really have, before it goes to the shareholders, the board have to agree for the shareholders to be able to vote on it. And the board are really not wanting that to happen because if you look at them, they have no skin in the game. They don't own any Twitter shares. They don't, they have no reason to actually send it to the board, because if Elon Musk takes over, he's going to basically fire the whole board, because they haven't been very good for the shareholder. They haven't helped increase revenues. They haven't helped increase, monetization or profit, or really done anything at all. They're just there because it's good on their resume, maybe, that they're on the board of Twitter. So I think if he comes in, it will greatly benefit, as you said, NFTs, and there's the thought of actually incorporating it into Web 3.0, which would be quite interesting. And I'm not sure how that would work, but we'll see. But I'm not too sure if we will see a takeover. They've implemented the poison pill tactic, which hasn't been used since Netflix in 2012. Before that, it was used in the 1980s. So basically how that works is they don't want someone to take over, because what Elon Musk is doing is going to be called a hostile takeover, because the board don't want it to happen, but he's going to try and buy up as many shares as possible to then, get 51% of the ownership and then be able to take complete control of the company. So what the board can do is they can incorporate something called a poison pill, which means if Elon takes over more than 15% of the company of ownership, that the company can then sell shares to other shareholders at a massive discount. So basically they can buy shares for half the price that other people can buy them on the open market, which is a massive arbitrage opportunity. So, someone could be buying Twitter shares for $25 and then selling it on the open market for like $50, which I think is, it's ridiculous. It's not in the benefit of the shareholders, because a lot of them, they're going to be diluted, and it's going to make it a lot harder for Elon Musk to actually be able to buy the company. So I think it's probably like a less than 50% chance that it's going to take over, just because they're really not wanting that to happen. But I think, as you said, it would add value to the NFT space. It would mean that there's more openness to what happens. And I think it would be a good thing. And, anywhere Elon's gone, he's added value to things. He's made things better and people better off. So I think it would be better for both the shareholders and the users. But who knows what will happen. I'm not sure if you have an opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to be a better thing. I see that Vanguard have 10%, and they're not a good. I mean, they have got shares in every single corporation that are doing terrible things in the world. You know, like they're in Pepsi, they're in Coke, they're in McDonald's. Them and a few others own basically, you know, the majority of the corporations. And if it means them being bought out, I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Like, as you said, I think 77% of the ownership of Twitter is institutions. So JP Morgan, Vanguard, BlackRock, all these companies. And they don't care, they really don't care about profitability. Like, it's crazy to think, but they don't care if Twitter's making money or if it's good for the other, 23% of shareholders who are retailers and they want to make money. And that's the issue. Like, it should be not only what's best for, I guess, users and best for the world, it should be what's best for the shareholders as well. And they don't care. They're loving to push their, specific agenda, which I don't think is correct, but we'll see.
No, exactly. And I mean, the amount of propaganda with everything going on when they control everything with the media and the whole lot. And that's why, unfortunately, people start believing what they hear 100 times instead of actually doing proper research and realizing, oh, I've been fooled again. But such is life.
But I think it's almost worse as well, because it's pushed people to the point where they don't believe anything. So, like, as you said, it might have worked to start with, but now there's just so much, everyone's like, no, we don't believe anything the media is saying. So it's almost pushed people the exact opposite way. So I think, you need to have trust in these institutions and these systems, because at the end, like we've seen it with CNN, which is, I guess you could say it's sort of more of a left-leaning platform. They've tried to release their recently. It's like their own Netflix, and it's just bombed completely. And their viewership has dropped drastically since Trump's been, kicked out of office, because that's all they had. They had this hate message, and people don't want to hear that. They want to, and they don't really trust them as well. So I think that's the issue. If you try and regulate speech and try and regulate things, it almost pushes people to the opposite spectrum, which isn't good. We want to, even though some conversations aren't, they're not pleasant, and they might not, you might not make us feel good, they're important to have.
Absolutely. And I think coming back then to finish up, it all comes back to the kind of, the crypto blockchain, because there's full traceability. So with that, you can see everything. And even with sales of art and whatever, because I was seeing recently about some guys, they made millions having fake wine. So they pretended it was, all this Grand Reserve wine worth, hundreds of thousands, and people were buying it. And there was no way of proving. And it was actually the vineyard said, we never released this one. And that's how they got caught. But they were gone. The money was gone. And there's a load of that going on. But with actually full traceability, I think that we're on the ground now at the moment. Same with the NFTs. There's a lot of scam artists and everything, but they're getting caught out, and they can only do so much. And the people are getting caught. They're getting caught in the rug pulls. They're getting caught in the different things. But I believe that's how you become stronger in life. You're going to get knocked, but it's a case of don't run the opposite direction. Just go, okay, how did that happen? How can I prevent it from happening again? And then you just kind of move on. And the good guys start sticking together. And then we just kind of, and that'll just grow. And that's the way I believe it's going to work in the crypto world.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many great minds in the crypto world. And as you said, there's so many genuine people as well that actually just want to try and help improve, how people work, how the systems work, how, institutions work. And I think that's really where the value is going to come. Those people, as you said, those people are going to come out on top. And I think, I'm not too. I had a good point, but I forgot it. Sorry. It's always how it works.
Exactly. No, plenty of times I'd be on the thing and I think of something, and then I go, that something would be said, and you go off. And it's just, I'd have to list of things. But listen, look, I know you've 70 episodes. I was listening to a few of them, so people will actually, what's the name of it? WTFinance is the podcast anyway. Yeah. So
WTFinance, and if you want, you can find it on YouTube, on sort of all audio platforms as well. And it's a little bit different. So as I said, it's not just crypto related. I don't actually think I've had a interview on NFTs, which, if you can believe
exactly.
it.
I was looking. I actually went through it, looking through it on it, and I saw a lot of the different ones. But there was you've some interesting subjects on finance, which, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all relevant. We need.
And I think it's really important. And it depends on who you are and your risk tolerance. But for most people, NFTs aren't going to be 100% of their portfolio, because they're just too risky, and it's probably not the smart thing to do. So that's where I think it's valuable to learn about other things and investments as well, because if you're fully in the ecosystem, that's okay. But if you want to maybe get value in the long term, it might be best to, even only 5 or 10%. There's something called like the Kelly criterion, which is a sort of from gambling, where the less likely it is for something to succeed, you should put less money in it, because if it does succeed, you're going to make exponential returns. It's going to be 100 times plus. And I think that's something as well that potentially for NFTs people might want to think about. For a lot of them, as I said, a lot of them aren't going to succeed. So it might be better to put small amounts of money into it. But from there, when they do succeed, you're going to really benefit from it. And if they don't succeed, it's not going to be as, you're not going to feel it as much, basically.
No, excellent. Listen, Anthony, thoroughly enjoyed our conversations. You might let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. I really appreciate it. So as I said, my podcast on YouTube and all the other platforms is WTFinance. So, a bit of a wordplay there. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, it's just my name. So Anthony Fatseas. It's the benefit of having a unique name. And there's also a website as well. So it's WTFinance.online. That people can, I release some articles there, and I'm looking to sort of expand that out as well as TikTok and Netflix and Instagram and all the other things as well. So I'm basically everywhere.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll put all the links on both the audio and the video. So listen, thank you very much, Anthony.
Roy, thanks again. I really appreciate it. It was a privilege to come onto your podcast. And well, as you said, you've built all these other platforms and you're trying to build this one now. So appreciate it.
So for the Crypto Podcast, you'll find all our episodes on the cryptopodcast.org, on BitChute and YouTube. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, subscribe. It all helps. Until next week. And subscribe to Anthony's as well, because he'll appreciate that. Until next week, take care.